The Corvin scrapyard floated in the darkness of space like a metal graveyard. Thousands of dead ships drifted in slow circles around a dying star. Some were small fighters. Others were massive warships that could destroy entire cities. All of them were broken. All of them were forgotten. And somewhere in the middle of this floating cemetery, a human named Kan Taiho was cutting apart what used to be a dream. Taiho pressed his welding torch against the metal hull and watched the sparks fly into the void. His hands were rough and scarred from 6 years of this work. 6 years of taking apart ships that had once ruled the stars. 6 years of being treated like a useful animal by the Helix Dominion. The aliens who controlled this sector of the galaxy did not think much of humans. They saw them as clever creatures, good for simple labor, but nothing more. Humans could follow orders. Humans could use tools. Humans could survive in conditions that would kill more delicate species. This made them perfect for the scrapyard. Taiho remembered Earth. He remembered blue skies and green forests and the sound of rain on windows. That felt like a different life now. The Dominion had come to Earth 15 years ago. They did not conquer with fire and destruction. They simply arrived and announced that humans were now part of their empire. Those who resisted were crushed. Those who accepted were scattered across 1,000 worlds as workers and servants. A harsh voice crackled through his helmet radio. It was Overseer Kreth, one of the Dominion guards who watched the human workers. His voice was cold and clicking, like insects talking. Sector 7 workers, increase your output. Commander Vorath is reviewing productivity numbers today. Those who fail to meet their quotas will be reassigned to the Acid Processing Division. Taiho did not respond. He knew what acid processing meant. Workers who went there did not come back. He simply cut faster, pulling apart the dead ship piece by piece. Around him, other human workers did the same. There were about 200 humans in this section of the scrapyard. They slept in cramped metal containers. They ate paste that the Dominion considered adequate nutrition. They worked until their bodies broke, and then they were replaced. But Taiho was different from most workers. Before Earth fell, he had been a military engineer. He had built ships, not destroyed them. He understood how engines worked, how power systems connected, how weapons were designed. The Dominion did not know this about him. They had never asked. To them, he was just another pair of human hands. This was their mistake. The day everything changed started like any other day. Taiho was working in a remote section of the scrapyard when he saw the new arrival. A massive ship was being towed into position by Dominion tugs. Even from a distance, he could tell it was special. The ship was a destroyer-class vessel, easily 500 meters long. Its hull was covered in old battle damage and years of neglect. The Dominion symbols on its side were faded but still visible. This was the Void Talon, a warship that had once been the pride of an entire fleet. An announcement came through all channels. Attention scrapyard workers. The vessel Void Talon has been decommissioned. It is scheduled for complete dismantling. Salvage teams will begin work in rotation. Taiho stared at the ship as it drifted into its final resting place. Something about it called to him. Maybe it was the way the ship still looked powerful even in death. Maybe it was the memory of building ships instead of destroying them. Or maybe it was something else entirely. When his shift ended, Taiho did something he had never done before. Instead of returning to his sleeping container, he made his way toward the Void Talon. He moved carefully, staying out of sight of the patrol drones that watched the scrapyard. The Dominion did not care where humans went after work hours, as long as they showed up for their next shift. This gave him just enough freedom. He reached the ship as the dying star cast long shadows across its hull. Up close, the Void Talon was even more impressive. The damage was worse than it had looked from far away, but the basic structure was solid. Taiho floated along the hull, running his gloved hands over the metal. He found an access hatch that had been left unsealed and pulled himself inside. The interior was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting red shadows on the walls. Tai-ho moved through the corridors, his engineer's mind automatically cataloging what he saw. The crew quarters were stripped. The weapons lockers were empty. Everything of obvious value had already been removed, but the Dominion had been careless. They had taken the easy pieces and left the rest for the scrapyard workers to deal with. They had not looked deeper. Tai-ho found the engine room after an hour of searching. The main reactor sat in the center of the chamber, a massive cylinder covered in tubes and wires. According to Dominion procedures, a decommissioned ship should have its reactor completely drained. Tai-ho checked the control panel. His heart began to beat faster, though the reactor still had power. It was weak, barely a flicker compared to its full capacity. But it was there. The Dominion technicians had been lazy. They had marked the ship as dead without actually killing it. Tai-ho sat in the darkness of the engine room for a long time, thinking. He thought about the 6 years he had spent in this place. He thought about his friends who had died from exhaustion and accidents. He thought about Earth and everything that had been taken from humanity. And slowly, an idea began to form in his mind. The Dominion saw this ship as garbage. They saw him as garbage, too. They threw away what they no longer wanted and never looked back. But Tai-ho had spent his whole life fixing things that others had given up on. He began to make a plan. Over the next few weeks, Tai-ho changed how he worked. During his normal shifts, he still cut apart ships as ordered. But he started paying attention to what he was cutting. A power coupling here. A navigation computer there. Small pieces that no one would miss. Pieces that the Dominion considered worthless. He hid these pieces in forgotten corners of the scrapyard. He memorized their locations. He began to build an inventory in his mind of everything he would need. The work was slow and careful. One wrong move would draw attention. One missing piece from the wrong ship would trigger an investigation. Tai-ho was patient. He had learned patience in 6 years of slavery. One night cycle, he used an old communication device he had secretly repaired to send a message into deep space. The message was short and coded. It went to a frequency that only a few people in the galaxy knew. 3 days later, he received a response. Tai-ho, it has been a long time. What do you need? The message was from Park. Yuna. She had been a pilot during the resistance on Earth. Now she ran supplies through the outer sectors, staying one step ahead of Dominion patrols. She was one of the few people Tai-ho trusted completely. He sent his reply carefully, hiding his transmission in the background noise of the scrapyard's communication systems. I found something, Yuna. A ship. The Dominion thinks it is dead, but it is not. I can bring it back. I can make it into something new. But I need help. I need tools. I need people. Her response came faster this time. You want to build a ship? In the middle of a Dominion scrapyard? That is insane, Tai-ho. He smiled in the darkness of his sleeping container. Double quotes, yes. Are you in? There was a long pause. Then her answer appeared on his screen. Send me a list of what you need. I will find a way. Tai-ho looked out his small window at the floating graveyard of ships. Somewhere out there, the Void Talon waited for him. It was broken and forgotten, just like the humans who worked in this place. But broken things could be fixed. Forgotten things could be remembered. And those who had been thrown away could rise again. The work would be dangerous. The chances of success were small. But for the first time in 6 years, Kang Tai-ho had something he had almost forgotten. He had hope. 3 months passed in the Kovan scrapyard, and Kang Tai-ho became 2 different people. During the day, he was a quiet worker who followed orders and met his quotas. He never complained. He never caused trouble. The Dominion overseers barely noticed him, which was exactly what he wanted. At night, he became something else. Park. Yuna made her first delivery during a scheduled supply run to the scrapyard. The Dominion allowed traders to bring food and basic supplies for the human workers. They checked the cargo, but they did not check carefully. Humans were not smart enough to smuggle anything dangerous. Everyone knew that. Yuna hid the tools inside containers of nutrient paste, welding equipment, power cells, computer chips, everything Taiho had asked for, packed into spaces that the scanners would not find. She was good at this work. She had been doing it since the Resistance days on Earth. They met briefly in the cargo bay while her ship was being unloaded. Yuna had changed since Taiho last saw her. Her black hair was shorter now, and there was a scar on her left cheek that had not been there before. But her eyes were the same, sharp and clever and full of fire. "You look terrible," she said quietly, pretending to check a supply manifest. "The food here is not very good," Taiho replied with a small smile. "The tools are in crates 17 through 23. Be careful with crate 19. There is something special inside." Before he could ask what she meant, she was called back to her ship. She gave him one last look before she left. A look that said, "Do not get caught." That night, Taiho retrieved the crates from the storage area. He moved them slowly through the maintenance tunnels that ran beneath the scrapyard. These tunnels were supposed to be off-limits, but the Dominion had stopped sending patrols through them years ago. There was nothing valuable down there. Nothing but pipes and wires and darkness. Crate 19 contained a surprise. When Taiho opened it, he found a set of Dominion security codes and a small data chip. A note from Yuna explained, "Stole these from a drunk officer on Station 12. They should get you past most internal locks. The chip has schematics for their shield systems. Use them well." Taiho felt something warm in his chest. Hope was growing stronger. He began working on the Void Talon every night. The ship was in worse condition than he had first thought. Years of neglect had damaged many systems beyond simple repair. But Taiho was creative. When he could not fix something, he replaced it with parts from other ships. When he could not find the right part, he built something new from what he had. The Dominion designed their ships to be elegant and efficient. Every piece had one purpose and fit perfectly with every other piece. This made their vessels powerful, but it also made them rigid. They could not adapt. They could not change. Taiho did not care about elegance. He cared about function. He connected systems that were never meant to work together. He rerouted power through paths that the original designers would have called impossible. The ship began to look strange, with cables running along the walls and panels that did not quite match. But slowly, it began to work. 2 months into the project, Yuna brought him something even more valuable than tools. She brought him people. Beak Jisoo arrived on a prison transport from the outer colonies. He was 41 years old, with gray streaks in his hair and scars that covered his arms and chest. He had been a soldier during the Titan Moon Uprising, one of the few human rebellions that had actually hurt the Dominion before being crushed. The aliens had kept him alive as a symbol of their victory. Now they were sending him to the scrapyard to work until he died. Taiho bribed a guard with smuggled luxury items to have Jisoo assigned to his work crew. The guard was happy to take the bribe. What did he care where one human worked? Jisoo was suspicious at first. He had learned not to trust anyone during his years in Dominion prisons. But when Taiho showed him the Void Talon, when he explained what he was building, something changed in the old soldier's eyes. "You want to fight them," Jisoo said. It was not a question. "I want to make them pay," Taiho replied. Jisoo was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Show me the weapon systems." Jisoo knew guns the way Taiho knew engines. He looked at the empty weapon mounts on the Void Talon and began to see possibilities. Dominion warships fought from a distance, using precise energy weapons that could hit targets from thousands of kilometers away. This was their strength, but also their weakness. They do not know how to fight up close, Jisoo explained one night as they worked. Their weapons are designed for accuracy, not speed. If we get inside their effective range, their targeting systems cannot keep up. He began converting cargo bays into weapons platforms. He took kinetic cannons from scrapped mining ships and modified them to fire faster. He built missile pods from industrial drilling charges. He welded armor plates from 6 different wrecks onto the hull, creating layers of protection that were ugly but effective. The third member of their crew came a month later. Han Sora was young, only 26, with quick hands and quicker mind. She had been caught trying to hack into Dominion communication networks from a hidden base on an asteroid. The aliens had been impressed enough by her skills to keep her alive, thinking she might be useful for something. They were right, just not in the way they expected. SOR looked at the ship's computer systems and laughed. Not a happy laugh, but the laugh of someone who sees a puzzle they want to solve. "This is garbage," she said, pointing at the Dominion code that ran the ship. "Beautiful garbage, but still garbage. It is designed to prevent anyone except authorized Dominion personnel from operating the vessel. The genetic locks alone would take years to bypass. Can you fix it?" Taiho asked. Sora smiled. It was a dangerous smile. "I am not going to fix it. I am going to replace it." She spent weeks writing new code. Human code. Simple and direct, without the elegant complexity of Dominion programming. The original software was like a work of art. Sora's replacement was like a hammer. It was not pretty, but it would get the job done. When she finished, the Void Talon would respond only to human commands. The genetic locks were gone. The security protocols were gone. Everything that made the ship a Dominion vessel was stripped away and rebuilt. The 4 of them worked together through countless night cycles. Taiho on the engines, Jisoo on the weapons, Sora on the computers. They rarely slept more than a few hours. They lived on stolen food and determination. Yuna visited when she could, bringing supplies and news from the outside world. The Dominion was growing more aggressive, she told them. They were building new fleets, preparing for expansion into territories they had ignored before. Humans on a dozen worlds were being worked harder than ever. The aliens needed resources, and they did not care how many workers they broke to get them. How much longer? Yuna asked during one of her visits. Taiho looked at the ship that was slowly coming to life around them. The engines hummed with power. The weapons were nearly complete. The computer systems were responding to commands. "Soon," he said. "A few more weeks." "We might not have a few more weeks," Yuna replied. "There are rumors that Commander Vorath is coming to inspect the scrapyard personally. If he sees that ship..." They all knew what would happen. Discovery meant death. Not just for them, but for their dream of fighting back. Taiho made a decision. "Then we work faster. No more rest. No more caution. We finish this or we die trying." Jisoo nodded without hesitation. Sora cracked her knuckles and turned back to her console. They had come too far to stop now. The next weeks were a blur of exhaustion and fear. They pushed themselves past their limits. Taiho's hands bled from working with hot metal. Jisoo collapsed from exhaustion twice and refused to stop. Sora's eyes grew red from staring at screens for days without sleep. But piece by piece, the Void Talon was reborn. It no longer looked like a Dominion ship. The smooth curves were hidden under welded armor plates. The elegant weapon ports were replaced with brutal cannon barrels. Cables and pipes ran along the outside of the hull like veins on a living creature. It was ugly. It was asymmetrical. It broke every rule of proper starship design. It was perfect. On the last night, they stood together in the engine room and listened to the reactor pulse with steady power. The ship was alive. After months of secret work, of constant fear, of exhaustion and sacrifice, they had done the impossible. They had built a warship from garbage. Taiho placed his hand on the reactor housing and felt the vibration through his glove. This machine had been thrown away. The people who built it had been treated like tools to be used and discarded. But together, they had created something new. Something that would make the Dominion remember that humans were not as weak as they believed. What happens now? Sora asked quietly. Before Taiho could answer, alarms began to sound across the scrapyard. Red lights flashed. Dominion voices shouted commands over the communication system. Attention all sectors. Security breach detected. Commander Vorath has ordered a full inspection of all vessels. All workers will remain in their quarters until further notice. They looked at each other in the red light of the alarm. Their secret was about to be discovered. Ho smiled. Now? Now we fly. The alarm screamed through the Corvin scrapyard like angry voices. Red lights painted everything in the color of blood. Somewhere in the command center, Commander Vorath was looking at reports and asking questions that would lead him straight to the Void Talon. Kang. Taiho moved fast. There was no more time for careful planning. No more time for secrets. Either they launched the ship now, or they died in this floating graveyard. Sora, get to the bridge and start the launch sequence, he ordered. Jisoo, make sure the weapons are ready to fire. We are going to need them. What about Yuna? Sora asked as she ran toward the access ladder. She is already here. Her ship docked 2 hours ago with our final supply run. I sent her a warning signal when the alarm started. They had planned for this moment. Not exactly this way, but they had known that discovery was possible. Every member of the crew knew their role. Every system had been tested. They were as ready as they would ever be. Taiho climbed down into the engine room and began the startup sequence. The reactor had been running at low power for weeks, hidden beneath the background noise of the scrapyard. Now he pushed it higher. The humming grew louder. The temperature gauges began to climb. The Dominion designed their reactors with safety limits. Automatic systems would prevent operators from pushing the power too high. The machines protected themselves, even at the cost of performance. Taiho had removed those limits. The engine would give everything it had, even if it destroyed itself in the process. On the bridge, Sora's fingers flew across the control panels. The screens came alive with data. Systems reported their status one by one. Navigation online. Life support online. Shields online at 40% and climbing. The new software she had written was rough and simple. It did not have the beautiful interfaces of Dominion systems. There were no elegant graphics or smooth transitions. Just text and numbers that told her what she needed to know. Engines are responding. Taiho's voice came through the communication system. We have power. Weapons are armed, Jisoo reported from his station. Kinetic cannons are loaded. Missiles are ready. The ship began to shake as power flowed through systems that had been dead for years. Old metal groaned. Wells that Taiho had made in the darkness stretched and held. The Void Talon was waking up. SOR. I looked out the forward viewport at the scrapyard around them. Dominion patrol drones were already moving toward their position. She could see their lights blinking in the distance. They had maybe 10 minutes before security forces arrived in strength. Taiho, we need to move. Now. Docking clamps are still attached. Give me 30 seconds. 30 seconds felt like 30 years. Sora watched the patrol drones get closer. They were small and not armed with heavy weapons, but they would call for backup. They would block the exit routes. They would make escape much harder. Clamps released, Taiho announced. We are free. Sora grabbed the flight controls. She had piloted small ships before, but nothing like this. The Void Talon was a destroyer, built for war. It handled like a drunk giant compared to the quick fires she was used to, but Yuna had taught her a few things during their planning sessions. How to feel the weight of a big ship. How to anticipate its movements. How to make something large move fast on. She pushed the engines, and the ship lurched forward. The first patrol drone tried to block their path. Jisoo did not wait for orders. His cannons roared, and the drone vanished in a ball of fire. The sound was beautiful to him. 6 years of imprisonment, and he was finally fighting back. More drones appeared, swarming like angry insects. The Void Talon plowed through them, its armored hull shrugging off their weak weapons. Jisoo picked off the ones that got too close. The rest scattered, calling for help that would come too late. SOR, they steered the ship toward the exit corridor, a gap in the scrapyard's defensive grid where ships came and went for authorized business. It was the only path out that would not take them through the main defensive stations. Security alert. Security alert. The Dominion communication channels were exploding with panic. Unauthorized launch from the salvage zone. All patrol cruisers respond immediately. Taiho listened to their confusion and smiled. The Dominion was efficient and organized. They had procedures for every situation. But their procedures assumed that humans would behave like humans always. Quiet, obedient, afraid. They were not prepared for this. Park Yuna's voice suddenly came through a private channel. I am behind you. My ship is small enough to slip through their patrols. I will follow you out. Negative, Taiho replied. It is too dangerous. Get out now while they are focused on us. Do not be stupid, Taiho. I did not smuggle all those supplies just to watch you get killed. I am coming with you. There was no time to argue. 3 Dominion patrol cruisers were moving to intercept them. These were not drones. These were real warships, each one larger than the Void Talon and fully on. Commander Voreth's voice cut through all channels. Cold and angry, like ice breaking. Attention, human vessel. You will stop your engines and surrender immediately. Your theft of Dominion property is punishable by death. However, if you surrender now, I may show mercy. You have 30 seconds to comply. Sora looked at Taiho through the internal camera system. His face was calm. Should I respond? She asked. No. Keep flying. The 30 seconds passed. The patrol cruisers opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space toward the Void Talon. Sora threw the ship into a hard turn, pushing the engines beyond their safe limits. The beams missed by meters, burning through the void where they had been a moment before. They are fast, Jisoo observed, tracking the enemy ships on his targeting display. We are faster, Taiho replied. Sora, take us into the debris field. The scrapyard was surrounded by millions of tons of floating metal. Ships that were too damaged to salvage, pieces of stations that had been destroyed in old battles, asteroids that had been dragged in for mining and abandoned. The Dominion avoided this area because it was dangerous and worthless. To the crew of the Void Talon, it was perfect. SOR, they dove into the debris field at full speed. Warning lights flashed as proximity sensors screamed about objects ahead. She ignored them. Her hands moved on instinct, dodging wrecks and spinning around obstacles that would have torn a lesser pilot apart. The Dominion cruisers followed, but they were slower. Their captains were careful, their ships too valuable to risk. They fired from a distance, their precise weapons struggling to track the erratic movements of the human vessel. They cannot keep up, Sora said with surprise in her voice. I thought Dominion ships were faster. Their ships are faster in open space, Taiho explained. But their pilots are not. They are trained to follow procedures, to maintain safe distances, to never take unnecessary risks. We are willing to do what they will not. Jisoo fired back at the pursuing cruisers. His shots were wild by Dominion standards, but he was not trying to hit them precisely. He was trying to make them afraid, to remind them that the prey they were hunting had teeth. One of his missiles found its target. A patrol cruiser's shield flickered and failed. The next missile punched through its hull. The ship did not explode, but it stopped chasing. Its crew was too busy trying to survive. 2 cruisers left. The edge of the debris field was approaching. Beyond it was open space, where the Dominion's advantages would return. They needed to disable those cruisers before they escaped. "Sora, bring us around," Taiho ordered. "Head straight toward them." "That is insane. Their forward weapons will tear us apart." "No, their forward weapons are designed for targets at range. If we get close enough, fast enough, they cannot track us. Trust me." Sora took a deep breath. She had known Taiho for many years. He was crazy, but he was also usually right. She turned the ship and accelerated directly at the enemy cruisers. On the Dominion vessels, targeting officers shouted in confusion. Their systems were designed to track targets moving away, not charging toward them at suicidal speeds. By the time they adjusted, the Void Talon was already inside their minimum engagement range. Jisoo fired everything. Cannons roared. Missiles launched. At this range, he could not miss. The first cruiser's bridge exploded. The second cruiser tried to turn away, exposing its side to the human ship. Jisoo put 3 missiles into its engine section. The ship went dark and began to drift. The path was clear. Sori pushed the engines to maximum, and the Void Talon shot out of the scrapyard into open space. Behind them, Yuna's small ship followed in their wake. Ahead of them was the blackness of uncharted space, far from Dominion patrol routes and control. Commander Vorth watched from the observation deck of his station as the human vessel vanished into the dark. His face showed no expression, but his hands were clenched so tight that his claws drew blood from his palms. "Track them," he ordered. "Find where they are going." "Commander, our sensors lost them in the debris field." "They could be anywhere by now." Vorth was silent for a long moment. Around him, his officers waited nervously for his response. "Prepare a full report for High Command," he finally said. "Inform them that a group of human workers has stolen a decommissioned destroyer and killed Dominion personnel. Recommend that the threat classification for humans be upgraded from minimal to moderate." He turned and walked toward the exit. At the door, he paused. "And find me everything we know about Kang Taiho, far away, in the safety of deep space." The Void Talon drifted in the shadow of a dead moon, its systems running silent. Inside, the crew prepared for what would be their first real battle. Not an escape. Not a desperate run for freedom. A hunt. 2 weeks had passed since they fled the scrapyard. 2 weeks of hiding, of repairing damage from their escape, of learning how to work together as a real crew. Yuna had brought them to this place, a forgotten corner of space where Dominion patrols rarely came, but they could not hide forever. "The supply convoy passes through this sector in 6 hours, Yuna reported, displaying a map on the main screen. 3 cargo ships carrying food and equipment to the mining colonies in the belt. 2 escort cruisers for protection. Jisoo studied the formation with experienced eyes. 2 cruisers is light security for a convoy this size. The Dominion does not expect trouble this deep in their territory. Why would they? Sora said bitterly. No one has ever attacked their convoys before. They think they are safe. Taiho looked at the map for a long time. This would be different from their escape. That had been chaos and desperation. This would be planned and calculated. They would be choosing to fight. Choosing to kill. "The cargo ships," he said finally. "What are they carrying?" Yuna checked her data. Mostly food supplies. Also medical equipment and construction materials. Nothing military. And the colonies they are going to? Human workers. About 15,000 of them, spread across 3 asteroid mining operations. Taiho nodded slowly. A plan was forming in his mind. We do not destroy the cargo ships. We capture them. Jizu raised an eyebrow. Capture? That is much harder than destruction. Yes, but those supplies are meant for human workers. If we destroy them, our own people suffer. If we capture them, we can deliver the supplies ourselves and make contact with the workers in those colonies. Sora understood immediately. We show them that there is an alternative, that someone is fighting back. More than that, Taiho continued. We show them how. Every worker in those colonies has skills. Engineers, pilots, fighters. They are resources that the Dominion is wasting. We can use them. The plan was ambitious, but possible. They would hit the escorts hard and fast, disable them before they could call for help. Then they would take control of the cargo ships and redirect them to a hidden location where the supplies could be distributed secretly. 6 hours later, they were in position. The convoy appeared on their sensors exactly when Yuna had predicted. 3 large cargo vessels moving in a triangle formation, with the 2 escort cruisers flying ahead and behind. Standard Dominion formation, designed for efficiency rather than flexibility. Taiho watched them approach on the screen. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. This was the moment they had been building toward. Everything they had done, all the risk they had taken, came down to this. Sora, bring us around to attack vector. Jizu, target the lead escort. We hit them first and hit them hard. The Void Talon emerged from behind the moon like a predator from the shadows. By the time the Dominion detected them, they were already closing distance at maximum speed. The lead escort cruiser tried to respond. Its captain was experienced and reacted quickly, turning to bring his weapons to bear. But he was thinking like a Dominion officer. He expected the human ship to engage at proper combat range, where his superior weapons would have the advantage. The Void Talon did not stop. It kept accelerating, pushing closer and closer. They are not slowing down, the Dominion captain reported to his crew. They are going to ram us. He was wrong, but only barely at the last moment. Sora threw the ship into a spinning turn that brought them alongside the escort cruiser at point-blank range. Jisu opened fire with every weapon they had. Cannons tore through the enemy shield. Missiles punched holes in the hull. The Dominion ship was built for long-range precision combat. At this distance, their weapons could not track fast enough to respond. The escort cruiser shuddered and went dark. Critical systems failed one by one. Its crew scrambled to contain the damage, but the fight was already over for them. One down, Jisu said with satisfaction. Turning to the second escort, the rear escort cruiser had broken formation and was trying to flee. Not toward safety, but toward a position where it could call for reinforcements. Sora pushed the engines harder, closing the gap before they could send a signal. Jam their communications, Taiho ordered. Sora activated the system she had prepared. Static flooded all frequencies. The Dominion cruiser's distress call turned into noise. No one would hear them die. This time the battle was longer. The second cruiser was faster, and its captain was smarter. He kept his distance, using the cargo ships as cover, trying to buy time for his communications to break through the jamming dot, but the Void Talon was not alone. Yuna's small ship appeared from behind one of the cargo vessels, where she had been hiding since before the convoy arrived. Her ship was not armed with heavy weapons, but it carried something just as useful, hacking equipment that could slice through Dominion firewalls. She targeted the escort cruiser's navigation system and sent it bad data. The ship's computers suddenly reported that it was about to crash into an asteroid that did not exist. Emergency systems took control and threw the vessel into a hard evasion maneuver for 3 seconds. The cruiser was flying blind and uncontrolled. 3 seconds was enough. Jisu's missiles found their target. The escort cruiser's engines exploded. The ship began to spin, its power systems failing. Escape pods launched into the void as the surviving crew abandoned ship. The cargo vessels were defenseless now. They had no weapons, no ability to fight. Their crews were civilians, not soldiers. Taiho opened the communication channel. Attention cargo convoy. This is the human vessel Void Talon. Your escorts have been destroyed. You will follow our instructions and no one else will be harmed. If you try to run or send a signal, we will disable your ships and leave you drifting in the dark. Confirm that you understand. There was a long silence. Then a voice responded, speaking the Dominion language with obvious fear. We understand. Please do not kill us. We are not here to kill anyone, Taiho replied. We are here to take back what belongs to humanity. Follow our coordinates. Do exactly as you are told. You will survive this day. The cargo ships followed obediently. Sora guided them to a hidden location, an abandoned mining station that Yuna had discovered years ago. There, the crew of the Void Talon transferred the supplies to hidden storage areas. But more importantly, Sora sent a message. It was broadcast on frequencies that humans used in secret, passed from worker to worker across the sector. We are the Void Talon. We were prisoners, just like you. We were treated like garbage, just like you. But we built a ship from the things they threw away. We fought back. We won. And we are coming for you next. The Dominion thinks you are powerless. They are wrong. When we arrive, be ready. The message spread like fire through dry grass. In the mining colonies where the supplies were headed, workers whispered to each other about the impossible thing that had happened. A human ship attacking Dominion convoys. A human crew winning against impossible odds. On a dozen worlds, people who had given up hope began to hope again. Commander Varath received the report in his office. His face remained calm, but inside he felt something he had not experienced in many years. Concern. They destroyed 2 cruisers and captured an entire convoy? He asked the officer delivering the report. Yes, Commander. The surviving crew members describe a heavily modified destroyer-class vessel operating with extremely aggressive tactics. They say the human ship showed no regard for its own safety during the engagement. Vorath considered this information carefully. The Helix Dominion had ruled this sector for 300 years. In that time, humans had launched exactly 0 successful attacks against Dominion military vessels. They were workers, not warriors. They accepted their place in the hierarchy until now. Increase patrols in all sectors adjacent to the attack location. Double the escorts on all future convoys. And send word to the High Command that I am requesting additional resources. What shall I tell them is the reason for the request, Commander? Vorath looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, a ship full of humans was hiding, planning, preparing for their next attack. Tell them that we have a human problem, and that if we do not deal with it quickly, it will become everyone's problem. On the Void Talon, Kang Taiho sat alone in the observation room, watching the stars. The battle had been a success. They had struck a blow against the Dominion. They had sent a message of hope, but they had also made themselves targets. Yuna found him there an hour later. She sat beside him without speaking, looking at the same stars. You know they will come for us now, she said finally. Yes. You know that next time will be harder. They will send more ships. Better ships. Yes. Yuna was quiet for a moment. Are you scared? Taiho thought about the question seriously. He had been scared in the scrapyard. Scared of being caught. Scared of dying forgotten and alone. But now? No, he said. For the first time in years, I am not scared. Because now, whatever happens, I know that we tried. We fought. We showed them that humans are not as weak as they believe. He turned to look at her. Are you scared? Yuna smiled. It was a sad smile, but also proud. Terrified. But I would not be anywhere else. They sat together in the quiet darkness. 6 months had passed as the Void Talon escaped from the Corvin scrapyard. In that time, everything had changed. Kong Taiho stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at something that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. 17 vessels floated in formation around an asteroid base that the humans had named Hope Station. Each ship was different. Some were small fighters. Others were cargo haulers converted into gunboats. 2 were destroyer-class vessels like the Void Talon itself. All of them were ugly. All of them were cobbled together from salvage and stolen parts. All of them were deadly. The rebellion had grown faster than anyone expected. Every successful raid brought more resources. Every freed prisoner brought more crew. Every message of hope brought more volunteers. The Dominion had created millions of human workers throughout their empire. They had trained them to operate machines, to repair systems, to solve problems. They had never considered what those workers might do if given the chance to fight back. Now they were finding out. The last ship is in position, Sora reported from her station. She had grown into her role over the past months. The young hacker, who had once been afraid of combat, now commanded the electronic warfare systems of an entire fleet. All vessels report ready. Jisoo had grown too. He was no longer just a gunner. He had trained an entire generation of human fighters, teaching them how to think like warriors instead of workers. The old soldier had found his purpose again. Weapons are armed across the fleet, he confirmed. We have more firepower than any human force in history. Yuna had not stopped flying. Her network of smugglers and spies now stretched across the sector, feeding information to the rebellion and moving supplies where they were needed. She was the one who had discovered their current target. Commander Vorath's battle fleet jumped in 3 hours ago, she said, pulling up the tactical display. 20 warships. He thinks we are hiding somewhere in the outer asteroids. He's coming to destroy us once and for all. Taiho studied the display carefully. 20 ships against 17. The Dominion vessels were stronger, faster, and better armed. By any logical calculation, the humans should run. But logic had not brought them this far. What is his formation? Taiho asked. Standard Dominion attack pattern. The heavy cruisers in the center, with the lighter vessels spread on the flanks. They are moving slowly, scanning for our base. Taiho nodded. He had studied Dominion tactics for months. He knew how they thought. He knew their strengths. More importantly, he knew their weaknesses. They expect us to hide, to run, to scatter like frightened animals. He turned to face his crew. We are going to do the opposite. We are going to attack. The human fleet moved out from Hope Station, forming a tight wedge formation with the Void Talon at the point. They flew directly toward the Dominion Armada, making no attempt to hide. Bara saw them coming on his tactical display. For a moment, he did not believe what he was seeing. Commander, his tactical officer reported nervously. The human vessels are approaching on an intercept course. They appear to be attacking us. That is absurd, Varth replied. They are outnumbered and outgunned. This must be a trick. No trick, Commander. They are accelerating to combat speed. All vessels show weapons armed. Vorath stared at the display. 17 ships against 20. Salvaged junk against the pride of the Helix Dominion. It was suicide. It had to be suicide, unless the humans knew something he did not. All ships, battle formation, he ordered. Prepare to engage. The two fleets closed the distance between them. On the Dominion ships, officers calmly prepared their weapons and shields. They had done this many times before. They had never lost. On the human ships, crews checked their systems with hands that shook slightly from fear. Most of them had never been in a real fleet battle. Many of them had been workers in mines and factories just months ago. They were not trained warriors, but they were fighting for their freedom, for their families, for every human who had ever been treated as worthless. And sometimes that mattered more than training. Taiho opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Taiho. In a few minutes, we will fight the largest battle in human history. Many of us will die. I will not lie to you about that. But I will tell you this. 6 months ago, I was a slave cutting apart dead ships in a garbage yard. Now, I am free. If I die today, I die as a warrior. That is worth more than 100 years of slavery. He paused, looking at the Dominion fleet growing larger in the viewport. They threw us away. They threw our ships away. They never expected us to fight back. Today, we show them what humans can do when we refuse to accept their lies about our worth. Today, we make them remember that they were wrong about us. Sora's voice came through the channel next. All ships, jam their communications on my mark. We hit them confused and we hit them hard. Jisoo added his voice. Target their engines first. Stop them from running. We want to destroy this fleet completely. Yuna finished the briefing. After we win, we scatter to the fallback points. Do not let them track you home. We have a war to fight, and this is just the beginning. The fleets met in the darkness between stars. The Dominion opened fire first, launching waves of precisely targeted energy beams. Several human ships took hits. One small fighter exploded. But the human formation did not break. They kept coming, absorbing the damage, closing the range. When they got close enough, the battle change.SORA activated her jamming systems. Across the Dominion fleet, communications went silent. Targeting systems lost their locks. Ships that relied on coordinated data suddenly found themselves alone and confused. The human fleet broke formation and dove into the enemy like wolves attacking a herd. They moved in pairs, covering each other, focusing fire on one target at a time. Jisoo had taught them well. They did not fight like the Dominion expected. They fought like humans. Vorath watched his fleet fall into chaos. His communications were jammed. His ships could not coordinate. The human vessels were everywhere, too close for his heavy weapons, too fast for his targeting systems. How is this possible? He demanded. These are salvage ships. These are workers. No one had an answer. The Void Talon led the charge into the heart of the Dominion formation. Taiho pushed the engines past every safety limit. Sora dodged incoming fire with reflexes that no computer could match. Jisoo fired missile after missile into enemy hulls. A Dominion cruiser exploded to their left. Then another to their right. The human crews were taking losses too, but they kept fighting. They had nowhere to run. They had everything to prove. Vorath's flagship took a direct hit to its engine section. The massive vessel shuddered and began to list. Emergency systems tried to compensate, but the damage was too severe. Taiho saw his opportunity. He pushed the Void Talon toward the flagship, dodging debris and weapons fire. Target their bridge, he ordered Jisoo. End this. Jisoo aimed carefully. The flagship's shields were failing. Its weapons were running out of power. For one moment, he had a clear shot. He took it. Vorath felt the bridge shake as missiles tore through the hull. Around him, officers screamed as consoles exploded. The lights went out. Emergency power flickered on, casting the room in red shadows. The last thing he saw before the second wave of missiles hit was the Void Talon flying past his viewport. A ship that had been garbage. A crew that had been slaves. He had been wrong about them. He understood that now. But understanding came too late. The Battle of the Shattered Belt lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Dominion had lost 9 ships completely, and 7 more were too damaged to fight. 4 human vessels had been destroyed, with 2 more badly damaged, but the humans had won. Tai-Ho sat in his command chair as the surviving enemy ships retreated into the darkness. Around him, his crew worked to assess damage and treat wounded. They were exhausted. They were hurt. They had lost friends today, but they were also alive. And Victorious.SORA was already sending messages to every human settlement in the sector. The news would spread across the galaxy. A human fleet had defeated the Helix Dominion in open battle. The impossible had happened. Yuna appeared beside him, her face tired but proud. "The word is going out," she said. "Every human in this sector will know what happened here before the day ends. By next week, the whole empire will know." Tai-Ho nodded slowly. He thought about the scrapyard where this had all begun. He thought about the Void Talon, sitting forgotten in a field of garbage. He thought about all the humans still living under Dominion rule, waiting for someone to show them that resistance was possible. "This was just one battle," he said. "The war is not over. They will come back with more ships. Bigger fleets. Better tactics, I know." Yuna smiled. "But now they know something too. They know that we can win. They know that their empire is not as secure as they believed. And they know that humans will never stop fighting." She looked out at the debris field where the battle had taken place. Somewhere in that wreckage were the remains of Dominion ships that had once seemed invincible. "What do we do now?" she asked. Tai-Ho stood up from his chair. His body ached from hours of combat. His hands were shaking from exhaustion, but his eyes were clear and determined. "Now we rebuild. We train more fighters. We capture more ships. We spread the rebellion to every corner of this sector and beyond." He looked at his crew, at the fleet visible through the viewport, at the stars that stretched endlessly in